Hi everybody, I'm June Moore and I am the Director of Growth at Affari, a creative agency. And today I'm doing an influencer interview with Micah Larsen, a persuasion scientist and specialist who left the world of academia to apply the persuasion science to the business world. So in our conversation today, I was hoping to cover kind of what inspired this transition from academia and the disconnect that you felt there, and also get into some actual direct application and techniques for our business professionals out there.
So a number of years ago, I was working at a private university in southern US, and my jobs were primarily to do communication research and to teach entry-level communication courses. And I love that because there's a lot of value in teaching college students about communication. As you know better than anybody, you have to be really good communicators in the business world. And I love the research part because I fell into the specific area of persuasion research or social influence, which is kind of a sexy topic. There aren't very many social influence researchers, and especially not living ones, because it's a little bit of an outdated field for many of us these days. But those of us who are trucking along with social science research are doing really important things with it, like public health. How can we persuade people to stop smoking or wear their seatbelts or have better preventative health behaviors? And that's kind of what I was studying. I was actually studying persuasive sexual health communication. So how can we persuade people to adopt better sexual health communication behaviors so they don't get STDs and spread them? And a number of other studies having to do with health and other persuasion.
Absolutely. Which I thought was really fascinating when I first started talking to you, is really understanding how persuasion science is applied to the public health space. So I thought that was really interesting.
There's an endless number of topics, but a couple of them that I looked at were breast cancer and how can we persuade people to divulge information about when they're tested positive for the BRCA genes, which predict high rates of breast cancer, organ donation. Those are just a couple of topics I was interested in.
The switch to wanting to pivot into the business world and how that came about.
So working for my master's degree, I was also working in politics. So I was lucky enough to land a job in the Texas House of Representatives as a director of communication, and really enjoying the application of persuasion science to the world of politics. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of application there. And as a director of communication, you're kind of on call all the time. And when something breaks in the news, it's really important to be on top of it and create a persuasive message about it. And I have one really strong memory of that. When I was living in Fort Worth, there was an incident in which a woman in her 20s had a pulmonary embolism and was rushed to the hospital, where she was pronounced dead but was put on life support. And her family, it was their wishes, and they said her wishes, to be removed from life support and not kept alive artificially. And the doctors would not take her off life support because she was pregnant. And this ended up making regional, maybe national news. And this hospital was in the district where my boss represented. So this is obviously a very controversial issue. And this is where I really started to see the most important application of social influence. And that's really a responsibility and an important one. And we have to be able to do it ethically and effectively. Around that time, I was thinking about working in the federal government, but decided to become an entrepreneur instead.
Well, and I think what you touched on is something that's really important, and I know it's something that we talked about, which is this piece around ethics, And I think even more so in our political climate and just what's going on in the news and with fake news and all the things that are happening basically right now. And so I know when you and I talked, and I think that this is just, you know, a paradigm and a way that people think out there, when they hear the word persuasion, they think, oh, I don't know if I want to use this tactic. Or I think sometimes there's some negative connotations to, you know, the science of persuasion. And is that the same as manipulation? And what does that actually look like when you're applying it in the business world? So I'm curious what your take is on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's one I get fairly often. And especially people of maybe our parents' generation have an association with persuasion that it's manipulation, or people would say coercion.
Exactly.
And persuasion is very different from coercion.
Right.
Persuasion is the study of how we can change people's attitudes and then change their behaviors. And there are a lot of ethical considerations, but the most important thing to remember about persuasion is that it always includes free will.
Yes.
So people always have the choice to make a different decision and go a different way.
Right.
We just try to enhance our chances of compliance based on science.
Right. No, that's great. And I think that's important that you make that distinction. So thank you for clarifying that for us. And I think this is a perfect segue into how do we do this in the business world? How can those of us that are sitting in sales and marketing positions that are business owners and entrepreneurs, how can we start to take the brain science as you've just described and start applying it to our marketing strategy, our sales copy when we're sending out email campaigns, our content on our website, our messaging? What are some just techniques that we can start applying today?
Great question.
Yes.
And the answer is that there are so many.
Yes.
Because we've used decades of research done with experiments and brain scans and regular self-report survey studies. And so there's such a huge body of data that can tell us what can we do to apply this in our lives.
Right.
And so obviously people are messy, communication's messy, persuasion's messy. That's why I created the algorithm, the 8-bit persuasion algorithm. It's a tool that takes into account you as the persuader, the person you want to persuade, what you want them to do, and kind of the environment in which you're trying to persuade them. And the output of the algorithm are the best persuasion tactics for you as a persuader to use to persuade someone else, to get the best compliance, increase the chances that they will do what you want them to do.
Awesome.
And you can use all those tactics in your conversations, in advertising, in copy, in emails, what have you. You mentioned when we were speaking earlier something called the IKEA effect, which is super interesting.
Yes. So, which you have a video, and we will include a link to that video so you can watch that. But yes.
So if you shopped at IKEA, you know that there's assembly required. You have to put together your own furniture, which is fun or frustrating. Or
if you're a business person, when I was in college, I used to get my male roommates to help me with that. I know that maybe sounds very sexist, but I outsourced that operation and then paid them in food and other things. But
that's awesome. Yes. Delegating is super important.
Exactly.
You're very persuasive.
Yes.
So even if it's just a piece of IKEA furniture, we tend to value the things that we create with our own two hands more than things that we just receive as a consumer. So if you can find an opportunity to co-create something with another person, they'll tend to value it more. And then after co-creating something with your persuasion target, if you can include a request that has to do with that co-created item, then you're much more likely to get compliance just based on the fact that they value your co-creation more.
Right.
So for example, if you're trying to sell your consulting services and you want to throw in a freebie for a client, if you can put together a plan with your client, co-create that, and then make a request like, hey, let's work together to put this into place, they'll be more likely to value that, see the value, and then comply with you than they would have otherwise.
Yes.
But there are so many ways to apply that.
Absolutely.
Widely.
Well, and what this reminds me of, so my background, I have a master's in organizational psychology, and this reminds me a lot of kind of the change management science and the things that we talk about in change management. And that is when you provide opportunity for participation. So if you're about to roll out, let's say, a big software change or some type of change, and you're able to, organize a lunch, put some chart paper up around the room, invite employees in and say, hey, this is something that's going to be happening in the next few months. We want to create an open space and dialogue opportunity for you guys to contribute some of your thoughts, concerns. And so that's just one example of a tactic that we use, or that I used to use as an organizational development practitioner inside of organizations. And so that also reminds me of, if you create opportunities for buy-in, obviously people will then see themselves in the solution and are going to be more apt to want to participate in that solution or make that purchase. This also reminds me of a conversation I had with Sangram, Vajre, and he is, of course, the Founding father of the Flip My Funnel movement and account-based marketing. And one of the things in our interview that stuck with me was kind of in those early days, he tried to invite as many marketers as he possibly could into dialogue and conversation and these just community forums where they could do their market research and ask the questions and include people in the solution. So yes, I think that's a fantastic example that you give of the IKEA effect and how that can be applied in our business world, so to speak. So
I love the way you put that when we can see ourselves in the solution, we're more apt to follow through.
Absolutely.
And follow through is one of the most common questions that I get from my clients at APIS. They say, how can I get people to follow through? And the IKEA effect using co-creation is one way to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think that's a perfect stopping point for us, because I know that as you just described, so maybe you can tell us a little bit about your company and what's currently under development, and then what will also be available to people right now.
Yes, thanks, June. So this is a really exciting time for APIS Communication Science, because I'm rolling out a complete website overhaul where I'm offering the ability for people to get on the website and take the algorithm quiz for free. So answering a series of yes or no questions, and then getting a list of easy to use persuasion tactics that you can use in your emails, your marketing, your conversations, get better compliance. And then an entire library of videos that will be available for people to download or stream on the website that teach you how to use all those tactics, and have some limited availability for individual coaching and consulting for businesses.
Wonderful.
And I'll have an online forum for people like you to be able to get on there and talk about how persuasion and the APIS algorithm is affecting your life.
Perfect.
And you'd like to learn more about it, you can go to www.apiscommunicationscience.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I just want to add, so this is a perfect solution for entrepreneurs, business owners, sales and marketing professionals. And I have, as you know, a training background. And so you and I have also talked about how this can be scaled to large enterprise solutions for doing sales training. And integrating this into your sales training as well. So thank you again for being here, and stay tuned. We'll probably have some more follow-up interviews down the line. All right, thanks. Bye.